Hey, this is a short video just going over the Toonshader. I came across in December. I actually assembled it based off of some information I found on the Redshift forum, just because there isn't a formal Toonshader available for Redshift at the moment. So I am going to give you the assembled version that you can kind of disassemble and check out. But essentially it's just creating a ramp that looks at a locator, and basically that Toonshader kind of fall off is really just filtered through the ramp itself. So if I were to create just a random piece of geometry here, like a ring, and let me just bring in a ground plane, something that could kind of shadow casting thing. Okay, I'm just going to import in the material. So import Toonshader 2. All right, and you can see that it brings in this group node, and under that group node is a locator, which is this guy right here. And under that locator is a shadow casting light, so this physical light, which is right in the middle there. You may want to scale that up or scale that down. Because we're using kind of a flat shader, the lighting information doesn't really affect anything, but you do need it maybe big enough to actually physically cast a shadow. Next thing I want to do is just open up my IPR. Oh, yeah, there we go. Open up my IPR. And Hypershade, there it is. So this is the Toonshader itself right here. So let me just open that up. And it's actually not giving me the entire shader. We'd probably see it better actually if we opened it in the node editor. Before this guy here is the locator information itself. And essentially this information is creating a facing ratio, essentially, but based off of the locator. So it's going to be looking towards the locator's position. So it's kind of creating a localized space, point in space for the ramp to aim at. Now the ramp shader that comes with Maya, there is an option to do this already automatically, but unfortunately the ramp shader does not render with Redshift at the moment, as far as I'm aware. So here we are here. Now to get the Toonshader effect, that's actually happening through this ramp. So basically you're going to have a shadow layer, your regular color layer, and then a lighter layer. And then this one is basically just the bright white highlights that we can use or not use. And I'm just going to apply that to our donut, or the torus donut. And make sure I'm set to Redshift. And let me just IPR that again. So you can see the different bands of color here going on. Now as I move this locator, that's also going to shift where those rings are. So you really get that kind of standardized kind of Toonshaded effect from that. Now we probably want the Toonshader on the ground as well. So you can have multiple Toonshaders. Just remember, every time you import it in, it will create this network again. So there's a couple options we have in order to control that. So File, Import, Toonshader 2. I'm looking right at it. So again, you're going to get this an exact duplicate network. I'm just going to hide that secondary light for now. And now for this to actually get the lights, to actually have the lighting information affect this, we can't actually use the Toonshader as is. So for the ground, it's going to be a little bit different. So if I were to just bring this one in, so there is a little bit of extra setup here. So for this, what we need to do is create a shadow catcher. So shadow, so rs shadow catcher, matte shadow, there it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed our remap value. So this is the ramp. I'm going to hit 2 on the keyboard just so I can see where that out color connection is. And we're going to feed this into the background of the matte shadow right there. So now if I apply this to here, we'll actually get you know, a flat shaded object still, but with the shadow on it. Now if that shadow is too dark, we have a couple options for that. So if you do have a color for this, we could feed that into our shadow color. So there is a shadows section here, which could be interesting. So if I had to say a ramp texture, what I could do is, let's try this, out color into shadows. So you can see that it's kind of giving me a gradation there. So what I might want to do is maybe sample, if I can, if it's gonna, I'm gonna put that over on another window for a second. So I'm just gonna sample this color here. You know, it could gradate a little bit. You can change the color. It doesn't have to be this color. And then back over onto our shadow remap. Let's see here. We've got our, yeah, it's not going to do it. I wonder if we can actually dial it down. No, it's all really going to be just through the texture itself. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so if I increase that, so I can dial it down that way also, which is kind of cool, through the ambient color. Cool. Now, I mentioned we have these two locators. We technically only need the one connected to both. So what you might want to do is grab both locators and then go into your node editor. And let me just open up both here. All right, so this is the duplicate. So what I might want to do is have my characters locator drive all of these. So, you know, once you have all of your textures connected, what we need to do is just connect our world matrix to the input matrix. And we should be good. So now we just have, and delete the other one. So now we just have the one light controlling both. So that'll control both shadows and everything as well too. Looks like I'm getting a double transformation. And you can separate these if you want to get a very specific look also. I mean, it's kind of cheating a little bit, but you could in fact do that. You could use the shadow catcher, I guess, on the actual geometry too, if you wanted the shadows on there instead of just using the incandescent material. All right, so what I'm going to do is, but the key is to just make sure that you're really only using the one locator. Now, you could have multiple locators for different objects if you wanted to control where the fall off and where the cartoony or the toon shaded highlights are. But this might just simplify it, just having one thing. Or you could just group them all under one group if you don't want to go through the hassle of connecting these. But it really just takes a second to do that. So let's go into your character file. So open scene. And where is it here? Jing. Cool. And you know what, to be honest, I think it's actually looking really good with the the global illumination, the dome light that we're using. It did have kind of a nice kind of flat, soft look to it. This will be quite a bit different, a bit more of a harder toon look to it, I guess. So what I'm going to do is open up the hypershade, which is right here. So let's go to this, and I'm going to import in the Toonshader. Which it looks like I had something on there already. So it's just experimenting. Let me import this again. So import Toonshader 2. There it is. And I just want to grab the texture. Cool. So I'm going to create 3 versions of this texture. So we're going to have a kind of a dark version. You might want to label these. We're going to have the normal color version. And we're also going to have a lighter color version. And these 3 are going to go into each of these 3 colors here. So the shadow one will go into the shadow. The midtone will go into the midtone. And then this guy will go into the brighter color. And I'm just going to make sure this is set to none. So we're not getting any kind of fading or anything like that. And then what I'm going to do is take this Toonshader incandescent, and I'm going to apply it to your character. Now, unfortunately, she's going to look like this in the viewport, so you might want to do this last, perhaps, or I'm not sure if you're feeding this into another scene for lighting purposes. But yeah, you might want to just throw this on at the end when it comes to rendering. Otherwise, it's going to be really tricky to see what's going on. So let me just go into the IPR. Cool. All right, so we got that going on. And then we have our light. So let's grab this and move that up. Now, I'm not really seeing any kind of toonshaderiness of this happening at the moment, so let's just see here. Oh, I know why. We're not seeing any toonshaderiness because even though I have a dark, medium, and mid-range or a lighter texture, and we've lost the texture on the eyes, so you'll need a new toonshader for that one too. And this looks kind of cool, just perfectly flat, I guess. It's okay. Some of these textures might need to be a little bit more solid in some spots with the line work. But what I might want to do, though, is just go over to these 3 textures, and then using the color balance, just kind of darken them up. Oh, here we go. So this will be a little bit darker. So it depends on how much you want shadow and shade on the character. This one's going to be the regular color, and this one's going to be a little bit lighter. And then, you know, it doesn't have to just be a grayscale. It could be a color as well, which is kind of cool. Right. So when we start bringing that locator around, we're going to get some really bright highlights. Or in theory, we should be getting some bright highlights. Where are my bright highlights here? Yeah, there's one more locator here. So if you do want some super bright, you know, in the desert, for example, there might be some brighter zones and things like that. Let me see here. It's tricky just running out of real estate, but let's see. So we've got this. Let me just pause for one quick second. All right, so next thing we want to do is, where did that locator go? It's right here. So let's, oh yeah. So let's see what happened to our remap. If I can get this thing working. All right, so we saw this last guy right here, and this is what's going to give us the white highlights. And we can kind of control how much or how little. We could also control like how much or how little of you know, the mid colors, how much or how little of that shadow color we're going to be getting. It's going to start creating kind of a cool cutout look. So as I was saying with the ground color, we're going to have to do, like, or for every other object we have, we'll have to create its own Toonshader for that. So again, we'll just have to import the same one again. So import Toonshader. And you might want to, you know, label each one as you import them. Now I got another one with, so I want to do probably the same thing with these nodes, like maybe get rid of that light. Eventually I'll get rid of this guy and have it feed, this guy feed into it. So maybe I'll grab both of those, open up the node editor. There they are there, so let's open up their networks. And again, we're going to want to take the one, which is this guy, because I can see that this has our texture that we were just working on. And we want to take that world out matrix and plug it into the input matrix and get rid of the other one. So now basically this locator position that I already have, is really hard to see, it's really tiny there, is going to be casting shadows on this ground plane here once I connect the material, which is right somewhere here. The new Toonshader is right there. So let's see here. There we go. So that's on there. Now don't forget, we probably want to, instead of using a Toonshader for this, we want to use probably that incandescent, or sorry, that shadow catcher, as I mentioned. So let's open that up next. So there's that. We'll go shadow, Redshift shadow catcher. It's also called the matte shadow. And we're going to be plugging in this guy, the out color of this one. So don't forget 2 on the keyboard. We'll just show you where these connections are coming from. So out color into the background. And then that matte shadow is going to go onto our ground. So this will be our desert color and whatnot. And then what we can do is just go in and change that ambient color to increase or decrease the shadow. Now that doesn't seem to work so well unless we have maybe a color, like an actual texture in here. So I would assume you would have some kind of painted, stylized painted texture for the desert ground. So I'll just use a ramp for now. So a ramp, there you are. And maybe I'll go with a circular ramp. And then for that circular ramp, maybe I'll also, here it is, just duplicate it. Because I could probably even use it in here too, as for my mid-tone color perhaps. Or I could do the same type of thing where I have a mid-tone, dark tone, and light tone. I'll start off with a mid-tone though, and I should probably, let me do this again. So I'll put it into this first. So I'm going to put it into the regular color. And let's just see. So I'm going to get a bit of a more of a deserty kind of color out of this. So we've got not deserty colors at the moment. So kind of like a bit more vibrant yellows. Not too yellow though, because remember that's very eye fatiguing. And this could go a bit more orange maybe. Cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'll take this now and just duplicate this. So mid-tone, shadow, and light colors. And then I'll just plug this into our, so dark, regular, and then there's the lighter color. So let me just make sure I'm selecting that. And then we also have our shadow. So now this can go into the shadow color. There we go. Now you'll notice it's disappeared. That's because I can go into the color balance now and I can start. So it's the exact same texture. Now, the good thing about this is that you'll get the gradation. So it's not just going to be a flat color over everything. So this actually works a little bit better. And then what I can do is then go into these three guys and you know, play around with their intensity. So shadows are going to be a bit darker, the mid-tone color is going to be regular, and then the lighter color will be a little bit lighter. And let's just see if I can, there we go. And then what I can do is, this is perfectly flat, so we're not going to really get a tuniness out of this. So what I might want to do just very, very quickly is just shape this just to give it a bit more of a, maybe she's standing on a dune, like a sand dune or something like that. Now it does look like there's a bit of a gradation happening. And that's probably because of the remap that I've got going on here. And I think that's my bad. I think that I forgot to set the lighter color to none, and that'll get rid of that. Cool. I also noticed your eyebrows aren't connected on there, so you might want to wrap those on. I also noticed that the pivot for the foot is in the middle. You definitely want to put that at the ankle so it rotates like a human foot would. You're going to find walk, and she does a lot of walking. It's just not going to look right unless your foot pivots naturally. So it's an easy thing to do, just changing the pivot, but definitely go through and do that. But again, this is going to give you a different look from what you had. To be honest, I was kind of liking the, I don't mind, I should say, the other look that you were going with. Cool. But yeah, that locator might need to be repositioned per scene, or you might need to get rid of the you might want to get rid of the actual brightest point if that's not working for you. Where's the... Cool. All right, so sorry for the last 5 minutes of me just kind of randomly doing stuff. It must be getting late. But yeah, you can clearly see those eyebrows are definitely kind of falling off. Cool. All right, it's a cool character. You know, experiment with it. Don't spend too much time though. It could give you some more options for cheating stuff, like the sand and footprints and stuff, going a little bit more toon shaded. It'd be interesting to see what this actually looks like with an actual background image with clouds and stuff. These white highlights, I'm not sure if I'm buying into them at the moment. It's looking a little bit plasticky. You know, that could be dialed down just by going into its shader. And just getting rid of that top one there, just dialing it off altogether. If you wanted to get rid of, you know, that overall kind of bright highlight that was there, go with something a bit more subdued. But cool, yeah, it's kind of looking interesting without that bright highlight. It actually looks kind of neat. But again, it's a matter of playing with colors and things like that too. So I'll let you explore that. I'm going to save the video. I'll give you the Toonshader file that I was using to mess around with, and I'll stop the video there.